Hello, welcome to all of you once again into the second part of the conditional clauses. I have already discussed four types of conditional clauses in part 1, and today we'll take up the other subordinating conjunctions and expressions which are used to form conditional clauses. At first, we'll begin with the subordinating conjunction unless. Unless means if not. So unless can replace if not in a conditional clause. If you don't work hard, you cannot secure more marks. Unless you work hard, you cannot secure more marks. If you are not ready now, you will miss the train. Unless you are ready now, you will miss the train. And you see here how we have used unless instead of if not. Remember that not is not used after unless, and unless is used in affirmative sentences. Remember that unless cannot always replace if not. Unless is specially used in a particular situation or in a particular event which would cause another situation or another event. The use of unless brings about a new situation in the consequent clause or in the main clause. Therefore, when it is not necessary, you should not use unless in place of if not. Example, unless you consult a doctor, you will go to heaven. You see here how the use of unless triggers a new situation. Unless I get a job, I won't marry. You see how the use of unless totally changes a new situation. So in certain cases or in some particular cases, if you use unless, you should think that, you should have to know that the use of unless would trigger a new situation, and therefore you should not use unless in place of if not when it is not necessary. At the same time, you have to remember that we use unless in type 1 conditional clauses and it is occasionally used in type 2 conditional sentences. For example, if you did not return my money, I would inform your father. If we use unless, it would be unless you return my money, I would inform to your father. And now we found that unless can be used in type 2 conditional sentences, that is imaginary or impossible condition. And now come to the next point. In type 1 conditional sentence, we can use should in if part to suggest probability. Example, if your father sends or should send money, you will help me. If they wait or should wait for you at the station, you must take some foodstuff for them. In these cases, should can be used instead of if. For example, should your father send money, you will help me. Should they wait for you at the station, you would carry some food to them. Next point. In type 1 conditional clauses, we can use will or would in order to express an intention or willingness. But it is rather confusing. In this way, if you will or would accompany me to the station, I will buy you a test paper. If you will pay for the lunch, I will pay for the dinner. But the situation in which we cannot exert our willingness, we cannot use will or would in type 1 conditional clauses. But you cannot say in this way, if the sun will rise tomorrow at 6:30, we will go by train. But here we cannot apply, we cannot exert our intention or willingness because the sun is not under our control. And the sunrise cannot take place at our will. So here in this case, we cannot use will in the type 1 conditional clauses. Another example, if you will secure more than 90% marks, I would send you to JNU University. But here, securing above 90% marks is not under his control. So the use of will here is impossible. It is better not to use will or would in conditional sentences type 1. Now let's go into the third point. Sometimes we can omit if in type 1 conditional clauses. In this way, enter my room, I will turn you out. Means if you enter my room. Touch my soldier, I would break your backbone. Means if you touch my soldier once again, I will break your backbone. So here, in these cases, in type 1 conditional clauses, we can omit if. The next point. If and but for. But for means if it had not been for or if it were not for. Above all, it means without. But for your help, I would not have succeeded. Meaning, if you had not helped me, it would not be possible on my part to succeed. But for my help, he would be starving now. Meaning, if I did not help him, he would be starving now. And but for is used in the sense that a new event or situation or action or activity triggered a new status or situation. In this sense, we use but for. Now let's go into the next point. Use of suppose or supposing to form conditional clauses. Suppose or supposing your son got a job, would you buy a new building? Suppose or supposing you pulled out a snake from the hole instead of a mud crab, what would you do? Then let's go into the next point. Provided or providing. It almost means if. It means a restricted or imposed or limited condition. These two are almost equal to if. He will study medical science provided or providing or if his father gets the insurance money. Next example, we will organize a public meeting provided or providing the minister meets the expenses. Then next point, so long as and as long as. We can use so long as or as long as to form conditional clauses. I will help you as long as you stay here. You can drive my car so long as you pay for the petrol. I will help your family so long as or if you don't find a job. And with this I am adding or I am including the photograph or the notes I have prepared for the second part of the conditional clauses, and you will take a screenshot of them and get them printed for future use. And again, with this, I conclude this second part of my conditional clauses. Thanking you all once again.